Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. I hope you're doing well today. I just have to start by sharing yet another wonderful synchronicity, a spiritual one and a natural one. I posted it on the community tab, and I also posted a very short clip of this experience that I had. Now, yesterday, if you tuned in, I said that there was a dragonfly on my window. Today, there was a praying mantis, and I did not take a picture of the dragonfly. That was actually in my living room, but this praying mantis was on my bedroom window, which was like, at first I didn't even know what it was because it was so big. I was like, what the heck kind of bug is that? And then when I got closer, my blinds were down, and I lifted up my blinds and I really started to look. I said, is that a praying mantis? I don't think I've ever been that close to one ever. I honestly can't even remember a distinct time that I've seen one, but I don't know if I've ever been that close. And if you check out the picture on the community tab for scale, I put up the peace sign because I wanted you to see, like, in comparison, I think it was this hand, that it was about 2/3 of the length of my middle finger. That's how big this sucker was. And so I Googled, praying mantis just to compare images, and sure enough, I mean, duh, when you see the thing, you can clearly see the hands, but at first, I was just more so captivated by how big the bug was and where, it had come from. But when you actually look at it, you can see its little hands praying. They move when it moves, and you'll see in the video that it began to like climb up my screen, and I lifted my window just slowly enough, hoping that I wouldn't like disturb it to run away. But I actually found out in my research that they're quite friendly and, connected to humans in a strange type of way. They're not afraid at all, and they're actually very harmless. And it's funny because if you look at the picture of me with the peace sign and it's next to it, it actually turned its face and is looking at the peace sign. So anyway, all that to say, as I posted on each video and the picture, that is your sign to find some time for prayer and meditation or meditation today. I mean, I have been slacking in my macking, to be completely transparent, over the last week or two. Haven't been as consistent as I've been with my meditation and prayer time. I was very consistent, like religiously so. And I took a couple days off and then started to slack off. And when I saw that, I immediately stopped everything, got down on the floor, and just took a few minutes. It wasn't long, but I took a few minutes, and then I just went into like a moving prayer space, just being in gratitude for the signs and synchronicities that we get sent on a daily basis that seem meaningless and seem like, nothing to really write home to mom about. But that was such a profound message to me that it literally stopped me in my tracks and put me back on a prosperous track, as a matter of fact. Who knows how important it really is, or even was today, for me to take those few minutes of meditation and peace and solitude, and how much it's even been helping me throughout those experiences where I was consistent. So the encouragement, with all that being said, for you today is to reverence those times of solitude, take them seriously, allow them to be sacred, even if it's just a few minutes in your car or a few minutes in your closet, a few minutes after the kids are asleep, before the kids wake up. Wherever you can find the time, it is important, and it does make a difference. Now, to the second point of that, the praying mantis is a sign of prayer, of course. Obviously, it's also a sign of focus, peace, mindfulness, patience, power, strength, and insight, along with a few other things, but all positive things. And then what I got a message from my tea bag today is, what belongs to you shall come to you. So with all of that wrapped up in one, I just like to say, for whatever it is you're manifesting, believing for, praying for, meditating on, proclaiming to be as if it already is, in expectation to come, or looking at your watch like, where is it at the by now? With all the universal energy that's in play, just continue to stay focused, by way of retrogrades, of course. Just continue to stay focused, continue to stay in prayer, meditation, and expectation. Keep your mind on whatever the prize may be, even if it's just a transcendent you, an ascendant you. Keep your mind focused on that reality as if it already is so, that whatever it is you're waiting or hoping for is already with you, it's already yours, and it shall be as it already is, So with that being said, because as the tea bag says, if it belongs to you, it shall come to you. So there's nothing particularly dynamic you need to do except for what is most dynamic of all, and sometimes hardest of all, to be patient and to continue to believe. All right, so let's see what we got here. I'm just cutting the cards a bit. I shuffled them a lot, but I just be feeling drawn to do it on camera these days. All right, thank you, Spirit, for these wonderful messages already received and those to come. Let us know what more we get to know today. That's too many. You know what? I'm gonna take that because when I stopped shuffling initially before I cut the cards, the Emperor was at the bottom of the deck, and so I cut it because I didn't really want to see it. But since he came back on out, here he is. Interesante. All right. Is this about to be another shocker? Okay, we got a whole situation out here. All right, let's see what we got. We have the Emperor. We have the Tower. We have the Two of Wands. We have the Ten of Cups. We have the Five of Pentacles. We have the King of Pentacles. We have the Wheel of Fortune. And then we have the Seven of Cups. Okay, give me a sec. All right. All right, so we got the Emperor on the board, who is so what I'm seeing. All right, come on, Spirit, just let me release it. So I'm seeing the Emperor, right? And the Emperor is like an authority figure. He's the most prominent king in the deck, the most powerful king in the deck. He's all the kings, right? I'm feeling that there's a clear difference here, a distinguishing difference between the Emperor and the King of Pentacles. I don't feel like they're the same energy. What I'm considering is the Tower. Or is it? Oh, man. All right. So the Emperor it can also be a father figure. It can be a person that assumes a position of authority. It can also be a collaborative force of power, a representative of a power that you submit to, or that just has assumed some authority, authoritative presence, per se. The tower moment is here, which I'm having a hard time considering whether or not it's the emperor being thrown out of the tower, or if it's the emperor throwing someone or overthrowing a tower in a sense, because he's outside of it. But what's connecting me to consider that he might be the energy inside of it is the fact that they both have these red cloaks on. If you see this image here, and he's in a red cloak on a throne. Then we got the Two of Wands, which is about making some definitive direction or point of action. It can be this or that, depending on the connection to the cards. But, meaning it can literally be high vibrational, meaning someone's taking the higher road or making a decision that's like an elevated frequency from something that perhaps has been committed to in the past, or an action that's been taken in the past. There's a fresh perspective, an expanded perspective, perhaps. And I'm seeing that, but what also bothers me is that what he's looking toward, which to me sometimes the focal point or direction of movement in the cards matters. Sometimes, not all the times, but a lot of times for me, it does. And so he's looking at this wand that he's obviously chosen, and it's pointing toward the tower. So all this energy is leading inside, and he also has on a red cloak. Then I have the 10 of Cups here, which is more or less in the highest vibration about a wish fulfillment of spiritual sensation, holistically being satisfied in spirit and in truth, family, blase, blase. But again, his back is turned away from that energy and leaning into what is directed toward this tower, which is shocking events, something that's occurred that's unsettling in some way. It doesn't always have to be negative, but it definitely is sudden and does often shift a foundation or shift some stability or security. Then we got the 5 of Pentacles here, which is clear cut about being left out in the cold or being isolated in some way, maybe even being in despair materially, not having enough to feel secure and sustained. The 5 of Pentacles, which is the opposite of that, somebody that is very stable and secure in his material wealth. And then you got the Wheel of Fortune, which is turning the tables, karma, exchange, evolution of sorts, expansion as well from that Jupiter energy of whatever it connects to, usually some evolvement or some acceleration of evolution, which is connected to the King of Pentacles. But then you got the 7 of Cups, which is about illusions, delusions, maybe having too much information or too many choices, and that coming from the 10 down to the 7 is definitely a demotion or dissension. That's not what I'm trying to say. That's not the words I'm wanting, but there's definitely a decline in experience here from the 10 of Cups, which is wish fulfillment, to the 7, which is like hazy and unclear, and there are choices to be made, but not all of them are good. So I'm honestly feeling like there was some power authority who was well established in his position that somehow in some regard failed perhaps to make the choice that would have been in a higher vibration towards a totality of high vibrational experience with 10 of Cups, meaning everybody wins. Yeah, okay, I hear it now. Everybody's winning, everybody's living life like it's golden. There's nothing to be desired in that card. Instead, it feels as though he chose something a little bit more personally gratifying something took precedence. So it's like he chose that matter of control. See how he's holding the world card in his hand and the two of wands? It's like he chose this road of possession, maybe even oppression. Ooh, now I'm seeing it. Where he could have allowed people to live and let live under his authority, under his rule. You know what I'm hearing? There was a choice of whether or not he would rule either his life or perhaps the lives that are in connection to him. Because remember, the emperor has a kingdom. He has an empire. He has subjects, people that are attached to him that may even be dependent on his decisions, or at least connected to his decision making, affected by it, impacted by it. And he had a very distinct choice to make. One, either to rule in fear or to rule in love. That's the choice that every leader has. Are you going to rule with an iron fist and create an exchange of fear for your power, or like a surrender to your power, and by way of fear and fright and almost tyranny, in a sense, like controlling the outcome, controlling the fate of your subjects, of those that are connected to you or even committed to you? Or will you embrace them in love, promote their best lives, encourage them to flourish and expand, as I said, evolve to perhaps even to become self-sufficient and independent in their own right? That's the balance of choice here. This is the opposite of that, where this is codependency, literally two people that probably are dependent on each other, at least emotionally so at this point, to survive, where they're lacking materially so. They're out in the cold, out of the sanctity of spiritual security, of stability, in a physical sense, in an energetic sense. And here, so this is him in a sense. This is an expression of him, from how he has ultimately found a way to monetize from the imbalances, misfortunes, and distortions of those of whom he is supposed to serve. Because a king, a leader in general, a good one, recognizes that he's more of a servant than anything. It's a tyrant that believes that his subjects should serve him, or the good of the kingdom is at his whim and call, at his disposal, I should say. And that's exactly what this feels like, that people were disposable if they weren't adding value to his agenda, which ultimately was to maintain dominance, control, power, to keep people shaking in their boots, to kind of be in alignment with some agenda or some way of, some stringent way of life that was limited ultimately, because this is no limitation with the 10 of Cups. This is like the fullest experience of life when you're looking at that 10. It's complete. It's a 10. But he saw the value in stunting the evolution of society as he is, as he services it or doesn't, in this case. He saw the value in maintaining, and I could hear this universally, but this also, of course, with my readings, most times there's a universal, like a big picture message, and then there's also something that's more intimate, more personal, perhaps more specific to what you may be going through in your life, or just something that's generally speaking in society. It's like, it could be both, it could be one or the other. Take it how it resonates, please, and thank you. but he sees the value and actually had ultimately had much to gain, or did gain much from keeping people poor and in despair. This is also about being poor in spirit again, because they are under his thumb, under his rule. And so there is almost this ceiling considered a tower, that if anybody even begins to gain any height or progression or ascension, they get knocked right back down to size, and the foundation gets wiped clean, right in the midst of their plans, Two of Wands, before they can get to this place of wish fulfillment and spiritual sensation and happiness. Ultimately, with the Ten of Cups, it's like every time subjects start to crawl out of that barrel, crabs start to crawl out, something blasts them back down to the bottom of the barrel, literally, with the Five of Pentacles here. And somehow he reaps all the benefits, energetically and materially. So energetically, so it's clear that when people are continuously codependent on this system, on their servitude to this society, in whatever regard, is set up for them to be so, it benefits those that are in the higher power to ultimately just collect the rewards, because if you got people working for you, that's less that you have to do when you can keep them in submission and contribution to your bottom line, your corporation, your society, your corruption, certainly with the Tower card here, always feeling like they have some servitude to this organization, or they're almost enslaved by it, is what I hear with the Five of Pentacles. You'd be hard pressed to evolve beyond this state if you can't ever see the light of day. If every time it's like continuously to kill people's hopes and dreams, because every time they start to become a little bit ahead of the game and see a little bit of the rainbow on the horizon, something happens and they get knocked back down out in the cold and into the darkness. There is much to be gained from the so-called powers that be, or were. As I said, the Tower is fallen, and I do feel now that as much as it's a dual expression that I'm sharing here with what I see, it's very much so that this Emperor is losing his grip on control at this point. It was very well established at one point in time, that people were so afraid of themselves that they dare not buck up against this system for fear of being cast out, of being hurt or destroyed. It started to become a psychological and energetic conditioning to not even desire but so much for yourself, for fear that you're going to get disappointed again. So people stop even reaching for the stars and reaching for their dreams, their goals, their true heart's desires, because in the past experience, every time they did, they were either punished for it or gravely disappointed by it. Wow, that's so sad. And it's so real though, like this is not rocket science that I'm speaking about here, even though that kind of looks like a rocket that's, blowing up, doesn't it? Ooh, sideline. Sideline. Protect space and those that are traveling to it, I suppose. But yeah, like it's how society is even set up. We're given these boxes, these confines, even within the ideal of success or stardom, or just stability, security, independence, and satisfaction, just simple as satisfaction in life. It's set up within different parameters, i.e. the matrix, right? That you can achieve it by this way or that, by that way or this. And anything outside of that, you run the risk of being sabotaged or being rejected and resisted as some, obscure expression of life force. Like you don't fit in. You get ostracized in some way for your insistence on doing something outside of the box, and even though in some regards there's an appearance projected that, yeah, do it outside the box, yeah, do your own thing, be your own like that's the propaganda, right? But it's like, ooh, this is dark. But the propaganda is to amp you up, to get you hyped up on the hope of the possibility, so that you'll actually go for it, and just as soon as you almost touch it, you get snatched back. And then the system soaks up that vibration of, it's like this energy of disappointment and broken dreams is what I hear, because it works two ways. Because first of all, that's fuel for the force, the diabolical force that you almost got it. You got to be quicker than that type of energy, where you almost got it, but they were able to snatch it from your grips, so much to the point where, again, they maintain this control over your evolution, over your possibilities, your whatever the case may be. That's the fuel on one side, that there's so much control over how people ultimately experience life, that fuels the ego in a diabolical sense. But then it also fuels the force of the system, because the more people are depleted and depressed, the more they feel they have no other recourse but to continue to get right back in alignment with the society that ultimately is fueled by their depression, but also is, what was I going to say? So the society is fueled by it, right, in the one regard, but it also, and then what it does is then continues that conditioning, so that eventually, as I said, you won't even want to try again. You'll be whipped into shape to say, you know what, I chased that dream already. It didn't work out, I'm not doing that again. Or I tried to start my own business, it failed, I'm going back to work. Even if it's a job I don't like, even if I love doing what I did and it just didn't quite map out to be what it was, I just don't feel like facing that rejection again, or facing that failure again. Like, yeah, I tried the marriage thing and it didn't work out too well. We failed, we ended up hating each other in the end, or whatever, not to be so bleak and morbid, but this is the vibration here at its worst, to subscribe to the idea that more than 50% of marriages end in divorce. And God forbid, if your first one happened to be a number in that statistic, it might incite you to never want to be open to commitment, co-creation, or procreation ever again, in that sense, because it didn't pan out the way that you expected it to do so. The projection is this idea of failure, that everything is crumbling down, when the ideal perception is that it was just an experience in life that was evolving you ultimately to some next level of the journey, or some next step in the journey. Perhaps that marriage didn't work out because it wasn't destined to be forever, but it certainly had to have, taught you quite a bit about who you are, who you want to be in a relationship, and maybe perhaps who you don't want to be with. Maybe that business failed because it wasn't started, it wasn't started in the time that was most fertile for it to grow. Maybe the seed was planted, and now you know exactly where you misstepped, and where you could perhaps do something differently, or maybe you need to market it to a completely different customer, or express your talent or artistry to a completely different audience, or it's just about taking the intel of the experiences in life and using it to expand your horizons, to maybe create a new plan of action, something that will in fact be lucrative, that you could literally pick yourself up from a tower moment and have a fresh, start of prosperity, something that's maybe even greater than what you had intended in the first place. But it's the energy of this diabolical nature, whether it be society, whether it be actually someone in your life, that is very determined to stop you in your tracks from moving forward, just to get into a place of stability and independence, satisfaction, God forbid, celebration of happiness, of a sensational life experience, by keeping you bound in this confused, delusional state about who you are and what your potential is, and also illusional state of what your possibilities are based on these past experiences. Wow, that's crazy. Let's go another round and see what we got. Because clearly it doesn't stop there, because what our tea bags say, oh, and look who tried to pop out. I'm not taking any of this because it's too many, but the devil try to find his way out. He'll come back out again if he's supposed to. When this energy is on the table, you gotta consider that force is somewhere lurking. And a lot of times, like I said, it's internal. It doesn't even need to be externally imposed anymore once you kind of condition a spirit to feel a certain way or to see their circumstances in a certain light, because you'll begin to sabotage yourself. You'll keep yourself out in the cold and away from your highest possibilities because you've allowed your experiences to speak to you in the most negative way possible. That's the control that force begins to have on you. Like, as soon as you get up, you're going to come right back down. But like I said, what belongs to you shall come to you. Yeah, I'll take these. We got the Queen of Swords. And I'm going to take one more to finish it out if I can. We got the Queen of Swords, we got the Queen of Cups, and this is like a face-off right here. What's that about? Is this the same person, or is this the internal self? And then we got the Page of Pentacles and the Seven of Wands here. So let's say, yeah, like I said, it's like confronting the truth of yourself, like what is logical, and maybe not so much a confrontation, but because confrontation seems a bit aggressive to me. Maybe it is that aggressive, I'm not sure, but it's like I'll stick with confrontation if another word comes, and I'll certainly surrender to that. But it's like a confrontation between the logic of yourself, the logical nature of yourself that wants to rationalize everything, and no wonder, because it's here under the Emperor card, which is the conditioning. Like, does it even make sense for you to still be pursuing that dream, knowing that, you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you're really not that talented compared to others that you see doing it successfully. You've already tried and failed, like these are the things, the mind games, that are played on the psyche, whether it be from an external projection, which certainly that is a reinforcement, but it's more so connected to something that's more deeply rooted, perhaps even from childhood, of things that you idealized. As the Page of Pentacles, you see the gift within yourself, but somewhere down the line, somebody told you, like, no, they blocked the ambition to pursue that gift. As simple and primitive as, growing up in a society where we're conditioned, many of us, not all of us, and it's changing more and more, literally evolving day by day. But many of us from a certain time were in fact conditioned. You get through school, you get good grades, you go to college, you graduate, you get a good job, you commit to that profession, have great benefits, have a family, get married, settle down, eventually retire. with some pension or some, 401k or whatever, it's evolved itself to be by way of financial security. That's been more or less the conditioning, that you have in this case, I'm seeing this as limited options with the Seven of Cups. It's more a limitation because there's like a fog around the rest of those the expansive perspective that could be beyond those clouds. And when you look at the Seven of Cups, it's like not a lot of things are very high vibrational amongst those cups. You only have a few options in the grand scheme of life, especially out of the 10, which is a completely different open landscape, when you compare the two. And the limitation is so that, it's almost like you're choosing the lesser of the evils for your life. The best option you can possibly foresee for yourself in love, in career, in co-creation, whatever that may be. So you might have a job, but you limited yourself to the thing that you actually like to do and that actually inspires you, to just your side hustle or some hobby of some sorts that doesn't have potential beyond that. The restrictions in life. This is like standing your ground in the highest vibration and solidifying a place of, like, a grounded space of self-awareness, and expression even as well, with the wand energy and the Seven of Wands. But with this haze of illusion looming overhead, it can be quite oppressive. It's like you're being closed in on from the top and from the bottom, from people that are closest to you with the Seven of Wands, like people that have an invested interest in your life, or at least express themselves to, or just impose themselves to, I'll say, that are close enough to you to have an impact on what you feel or decide for yourself, i.e. family, friends, even foes sometimes, perhaps even, just day-to-day life that you rub elbows with in your travels, and that projection of what is, reasonable to do and to create for yourself, and safe also with the Seven of Wands, definitely about security and safety from the standpoint of protecting yourself, though, and standing your ground. But like I said, once upon a time, when you were most vulnerable to the gems and jewels of the reality of yourself by way of your gifts and your talents and even your dreams and aspirations, how they reflected to you by the world that you could see around you, that we've all been exposed to superstars in one aspect or another. But when it comes down to actually seeing yourself as an expression of that, or a possibility to express that, that was very much so hampered and opposed and oppressed. First of all, you had the whole of society speaking to you that there were only a few stars, literally, as he's holding a pentacle, there are only a few stars that can make it to this status of prominence, let alone dominance, a superstar. There's only a few. Not everybody has talent, the gift, the resources, the opportunity, the je ne sais quoi, to, the it factor, if you will, to achieve that status of evolution. A wheel of fortune is like a jackpot, once in a lifetime, luck of the draw type of energy when you see it that way, or when it's being projected to you that way. But here, to go back to this point, is you facing off from what you've always been told, perhaps even what you've always known to be true, what you know to be logical and something that is tangible and real to you now in real time, what's mentally conceivable, to what is emotionally and spiritual conceivable. Again, back to that essence of you that is deep-seated, deep-rooted, that is very much a part of you, but sometimes can get either dried out quite honestly, in logic and in the realities of life, or that can be tainted by way of the cup, that holy grail, that special essence of you that's been spiritually ordained and anointed to do something special, can be tainted by others' projection of you. Simply put, by family, by friends, by foes, by society on a macro scale and on a micro scale, maybe even your neighborhood where you grew up in a space where there weren't many people that made it out alive, let alone made it to success or made it to some prominence of even security and stability on themselves, with themselves. That projection alone, by your way of your surroundings, could compress your conception of evolving beyond what you can see and what you can focally perceive with your own eyes. In this evolution of the human spirit, as we all are in alignment with, hopefully, and flowing with, it does call for you to for there almost to be a face-off of what you've always known, and more or less, when I was saying like a confrontation, it gets to be transmuted so that it's less confrontational, that you don't feel like you're having to defend yourself to yourself, let alone to others, and always having to fight for this childlike essence of you, the star seed in you, if you will, that's just been dying to express itself. You don't always feel like you have to defend that nature and the legitimacy of your star status unto yourself or unto others, by way of just surrendering to the spirit, that spiritual nature of you that's always known exactly what you felt most satisfied doing, being, and having in life, outside of the propaganda, the projections, the delusions, the lies, outright lies about who you are and what you're capable of and what you deserve to have. It is a face-off, it is a confrontation at first to release yourself from the conditioning as it's been superimposed at this point, but then it ultimately becomes a co-creation, a collaboration of these two energies where, you can use just as much of your logic, your intelligence, your expertise in a very actual way, because that's what the King of Swords has. Like, she has a very specific set of skills that are very what can I say, like they're tried and true. It's not just idealized that she's an expert in some way. Like, she's actually done the work in some regard, or even had the life experience to back up what she knows. She has the receipts for her intelligence, so there's that. And there's then the Queen of Cups, which sometimes doesn't have the receipts. She's working on spirit, she's working on intuition, psychic ability, her emotional intelligence, those signals and signs internally and even externally that often don't really make a lot of sense, pardon me, to those on the outside looking in, because they're specifically divine and ordained to her through her. And I'm saying her, but of course, it can be masculine or feminine. But I feel like this face-off is really, it's interesting that it is feminine energy, because it does call for masculine or feminine to access that point of receptivity, to be open to the spirit and the truth of the matter of you, if that makes sense. Not to just be exclusive to one or the other, because you can be exclusively spiritual, pardon me, and not be grounded by the facts, by reality, in the sense that there's some actualization of a plan, some, as we say, faith without works is dead, and Christianity, we say that. The Bible says that faith without works is dead. So you can have all the big ideas and dreams in the world, literally 10 of Cups, but if there's no plan of action behind it, no intention, a business plan for that dream, or something mapped out as to the steps of action that you get to take to get to that goal, even if it's just about elevating yourself or expanding your own nature in some way, shape, or form. If there's no clear road to that success by way of what you determine it to be, or between you and the spirit that you submit to, then it could just be fantasy, Piscean energy, in a sense, where it can be very dreamy and very fantastical. Not really, because most Pisces, they work in a different type of magic. But, in the caricature essence of a Piscean who's very dreamy and fantastical and almost delusional in a sense, here with this Seven of Cups energy, where you just like fantasizing about a world all day, but there's nothing that you are ultimately willing to do to even just to establish yourself as someone that can be receptive of that type of energy if the opportunity were to arise today or tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, you're saying you want to be a star, but you never practice your craft. You don't even study others that do it, or expose yourself to expressions of it that would be an inspiration to how you express it, these things. And then you could be all cerebral about it and only do all of those things where it's all about the book, and you've read every book on the craft, or read every book about the artistry, watched every documentary about your favorite artist, or, studied every aspect of whatever it is that interests you, read it from cover to cover, put it into concept, as to how it makes sense in your life, but there's no spiritual essence behind your pursuit, so you don't have that essence of passion and pure love for what you do. It just becomes robotic. So it's like one really can't exist without the other, holistically so, to create what is this Ten of Cups happily ever after situation. And I feel like that's the case in any way you splice it, because everybody's happily ever after looks different. It's not all about family. Some people don't want a family. Some people don't want children. Some people don't want to own their own business. Some people don't want to be a star. Some people don't want to travel the world. Some people don't want to leave their city or their town, and that's okay. But it really comes down to whatever it is you idealize as that expression and experience of happiness gets to happen on account of you breaking free from the mold and confinement of the boxes that wish to contain you, whether they be people intimately in your life, or the system and society that we all are in, that we are citizens of. There's a breaking free of that from the external, and then certainly so within your own being, where you get to balance these energies of spirit and truth to have just as much of a fantastical experience of life as you do an actual factual expression of it, if that makes sense. And a lot of it does come down to releasing some of those confines and constraints that happened in childhood, or perhaps just when you were in a more vulnerable state. Perhaps you weren't as aware of the possibilities of life at some point in time, because you weren't privy to that perspective. As I said, you could be from a place where that didn't exist, and you could see it on TV all day, but again, society would project to you that that's just only a few, and that you're not included in that. That's not for you, So on a very intellectual level, and on a very spiritual level, there is an invitation to experience life in a more holistic way, in an expansive way, because that's where we're headed to. But best believe that all the while, all the way, the powers that be, again, on a micro scale and on a macro scale, are looking to ultimately block you from actually fortifying your foundation in a way that would make you confident enough to do whatever it is that you do without fear. Again, back to that fear or love vibration. You can't expect for society to love you into the life of your dreams because it's just not set up that way. Hell, half the people in your life are not set up that way because we've all been conditioned by the same system. So sometimes we project onto each other our fears. Like, girl, you gonna do that? You gonna quit your job? You gonna break up? You gonna end your marriage after 10 years? Are you serious? You know, what you gonna do? How you gonna support yourself? You want to have kids? Why in this world? Why would you bring kids into this world? You want to start your own business? Are you sure about that? This economy is not looking good. I would hold on to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and people may not even mean no harm. That's the thing. But if you are allowing others to be, right now anyway, perhaps and shortly after, as more people begin to evolve, then we can be a positive reflection one to another. But right now, you can't take your cues from societal norms. You can't even take it from the norms of your surroundings, because most of what you have been projected to be truth in your life is actually an illusion. And it's an illusion to ultimately fuel a force that is beyond you, but that is not working for you, in fact. All right, so I'm gonna just take a few more if I can, and we'll close it out. This is an interesting message. A few more, Spirit, if we may. But again, let me remind you, what belongs to you shall come to you. So in this space of face-off, what did I say? Confrontation and co-creation. There's still this undertone of knowing that you don't have to be, there's no Queen of Wands on here, at least not as of yet, that you don't have to necessarily go and apprehend anything that is divine to you. It's more so being open to receive it, being ready in a position of reception. And that comes from the mind and the spirit first and foremost, before you even put any action into play. Because like I said, you can go off and have this dynamic plan, but if in the back of your mind you still, in the back of your mind you still don't feel worthy to receive it because you've drank the Kool-Aid of, almost tipped over. You drank the Kool-Aid, that would have been so funny if I did. You drank the Kool-Aid of society, I think this is backwards. Or, in your spirit, you keep all your dreams contained and relinquished to, relinquished to just a dream or a fantasy. You keep all this goodness locked up inside and don't ever let anyone out for fear that you're going to be rejected, or maybe even laughed at or resisted and, ridiculed for having a dream in the first damn place, But, ultimately, you don't have to go out of your way. What's this? How many? Ooh, and look who came back out. And look at this. I got to keep this because I saw that for a reason. You don't have to necessarily, and when I mean go out of your way, it doesn't mean not to have ambition. And again, to put, like I said, faith without works is dead, right? But if it's not internally first, then it's going to ultimately fall short anyway, in one way, shape, or form. It won't be holistically satisfying. It may satisfy one aspect of you. Maybe you accomplished the goal, but you're not even happy with the results. Because you're still worrying about what other people think about you accomplishing that goal or what they have to say about it. It's like you got to bring into alignment your mind and your spirit in order to really reap the rewards of the inheritance that we're all entitled to in this life, which is to be the star that we are. If you can get into it over here, let me do this. If you can get into it over here on the left side, hopefully you can see it. Yeah, I'm sure you can see on this side. This again is society. This is even like spiritual structures of society, and very much so establishments. So not just individuals, as I spoke about the emperor. This is exactly what I was saying about the establishments that we have surrendered our sovereignty to allow them to tell us how we measure up and measure out as a star or null. Like, to tell us who gets to be a star, who gets to be successful, what are the requirements, what are the restrictions, who even gets to be in alignment with their just divine spiritual self, let alone being healed and whole just in the essence of who you organically are. Because that's what the star energy is. It's not even necessarily stardom by superficial standards. Not to say if you want to be a star, I'm not saying that that's superficial, but what I'm saying is it's not restricted to that. This is about being healed and whole, literally pouring out of yourself in the most authentic way and being open to how the universe responds and rewards you for it. Not even necessarily looking for a reward, but knowing that that's just the natural exchange of life when you're living in your authenticity. That's the star card. Someone that has overcome all of these experiences, or at least is intentional on the pursuit of overcoming the restrictions that have been projected in life. Intimately and generally speaking, that you're not relenting to the limitations that have been set for you in any way, shape, and form, unless you feel that they are righteously so. That's this. You see how there's a difference here? Like, I put these here. I didn't necessarily do it intentionally, but this stack is much higher, and this represents societal standards and norms and confines and even religious organizations. And by religious in this regard, it could be very actual, as many of us have definitely been vulnerable to that. What religion in an organized way and as an organized institution projects to us as what is righteous. There's that. But it's just generally the deck stacked against you in society, that the things that we have allowed to take precedence, literally to be the president of our lives and of our existence, are stacked up against our most organic essence, which is of divine nature. The North Node, North Star that you follow, again, as I said, that is only determined between the spirit and the truth of you, literally an ordinance of what your divine calling gets to be, and then you answering to that, or just being an intention, as I said, having the intention of spirit, of mind, to follow that light, that inner light and that guiding light that leads you to this happiness. That's the only way to it, is that star. Is you following the way that leads you to fulfillment in your own being, regardless of what anybody has to say, how anybody receives it, perceives it, rejects it, accepts it, because sometimes we can get distracted by the acceptance in our lives and the cheers and the jeers, for that matter. Sometimes the celebration can be just as distracting as the rejection, because we want, that's why fame is a drug, right? Because we want to keep feeling that feeling of acceptance and recognition, and that power that comes along with somebody knowing, seeing who you are and appreciating the light that you emit. But here, that's exactly, I'm feeling like me saying that leads to this energy here, because that's what gets us into these comparative energies of looking outside of ourselves for said acceptance or affirmation, never quite getting it with the Nine of Wands, because this, like I said, this world is not set up that way. So even if you reach a certain star status, you can't even live off of that but for so long, unless it's been implanted in your spirit already, which is probably the most important part of this, especially anybody that is aspiring to any level of fame or recognition or success in a public sphere. That you really need to get down deep in your heart as to the star that you are, aside from the recognition. Because once you have it and then it's affirmed from the external perspective, then you're put in this position where there's more temptation for you to either be willing to do anything to maintain it, or depressed if you can't, or if it doesn't stay on this magnitude or level of which you initially acquired it. Remember this, the deck in society is stacked against you. Now, spiritually so is not the case. You know, when you shift your perspective to more of a spiritual insight of what fame is and what it truly means to have clout and even be prosperous and successful, when you know that what you do is in alignment with the greatest good of you and the highest frequency of you, you could live without the fame and fortune. You could never have it and still feel like a star. You could have it and lose it and still feel accomplished and successful. You will not fall victim to the temptation of doing a little something strange for change to stay in the limelight or keep that status or stay successful, stay relevant, whatever the case may be. Keep your views up, keep your subscriber count climbing, you know, keep customers, viewers, whatever it is that you're expressing as the star, as that just natural vibrant essence and energy of you is so important to the value and experience of your life that you would do it for free. You would do it if no one was watching. You would do it if everyone is watching. You know, you would do it if everyone was watching yesterday, but they're not today. You know, you would do it if nobody's watching today, but tomorrow the whole world is looking at you. You know, you won't stop being you no matter what you come up against. That really is the true test of star quality in the earth right now, because that fictional facade of success and, you know, that's been fed to us by the limitation and the limitation and what am I trying to say? Like the ceiling of it all, you know, that literally not so many can have it. But then when you have it, you got to do these certain things to keep it. And this is almost like literally that secret society energy that we hear about being exposed day to day, where people feel like they're, you know, they've sold their souls in some fantastical or in some practical regard. Because selling your soul doesn't mean you necessarily are chanting with a secret society or some coven of sorts and drinking blood and, you know, slitting your wrist or having orgies, although, you know, there's a lot of that going on too. But it could be just as primitive, as I said, as you doing something strange for change that's just not in alignment with what you really want to do or who you even are, because you don't want to lose the status that you have acquired, the success that you've obtained. That's just as much of a sellout as someone that is doing all those strange things. Just as primitive as it is, you know, outrageous or fantastical, things that you don't even know if is even real because you've never seen it. We do it day to day. You do it day to day. As I said, when you know good and well, you should be writing that book. You should be starting that business. You should be writing those songs, recording those songs, singing those songs. Maybe you should be doing this in some regards, expressing yourself spiritually, maybe not with cards, but in some other way. But there's a fear for the resistance or the reaction or rejection of it all. And so you stay small, you stay stagnant, you stay confined to what is comfortable and secure for, you know, for fear of the masses and how they react to you. That's selling your soul, because you're not expressing the greatest and most ethereal essence of you that you're being called to do so on account of you logisticalizing, I know that's not a word, but you know what I'm trying to say, the possibilities of this spiritual yet earthly experience. You know, earthly yet spiritual experience. However way you want to put it is the expression here. It's just as very much an ethereal, a godly, divine experience as it is a physical one. You can't forsake one for the other and then expect to live a life that's full of happiness and love and sensational in every way. It doesn't work like that. But as long as the powers that be that you have given right and authority to allow you to think, or allow you to even live in the illusion that the sacrifice of one is necessary for your stability and security, or that you can't have it all, which you absolutely can. Whatever is ordained for you to have, you can have it. You can't have it all, you can't do it all. Then that's the reality that you will continue to live out, simple and plain, And this energy down here with the devil card doesn't even deserve too much shine at this point in time, because it's not real. It's the illusion that persists from within that only those projections on the outside can attach to, by way of which you agree to allow to be so. Same as with the emperor. The emperor can only rule over what you submit to. You can surrender to the standards of this society, or you can move. You can go to another kingdom, maybe create your own, maybe live in recluse or in off the grid, literally, perhaps. I don't know. You can live in the wilderness. You can create your own society if it be admissible for you to do so. Be your own authority in essence. It's all about what you submit to and surrender to, as to what becomes the reality of your existence. This down here is just the literally lowest for a reason, because this is the only road that surrendering to a source and a force that ultimately doesn't have your best interest at heart. And again, I say, if it could be as intimate as family and friends, unfortunately, and it can be as general and universal as the government itself, or your town, your state, your city, your job, whatever that ceiling of superiority is in your life. It's a call for you to break that seal and release yourself from those limitations and from those restrictions in the way that they exist diabolically, those things that keep you in depression or feeling less than, feeling like you don't have enough, feeling like you're out in the cold of your own spirit, feeling like you're always looking back at life with regret and remorse, shoulda, woulda, couldas, things that you're looking on that you wished you had continued on with, or even started, for crying out loud. And God forbid, looking and comparing your experience of life to others. That, what do they say? Comparison is the killer of joy, or something like that. That saying, whatever that is, like, it's the greatest killer of joy in some sense, something like that, where if you're looking on the outside for some semblance of reality for yourself, you're looking all in the wrong place. This is an internal, these two are turned toward each other. This is an internal observation and assurance that gets to happen. It can't happen, and it won't happen anywhere from the outside. Nowhere. Nothing in this world is going to, at this time, is going to affirm what you already know to be true of yourself, for yourself, and by yourself. So don't be afraid to be in solitude, to make those discoveries, and then to step out in faith on the fantasies that are most fortifying for your future. Don't be afraid. It's your divine right to live in happiness, healed and whole and complete, just as you are, no matter what energy projects to you otherwise. All right, so that's it. Again, what belongs to you shall come to you. I encourage you again, as the praying mantis brought the message, to stay focused, stay in peace, and passionate about your future, about your presence, even more importantly. That's what the praying mantis calls us to do, to get present with our possibilities at this point, to be focused here and now, to be in peace, to be in prayer, to be proclaiming the realities of our wildest dreams as they already exist in real time, to be going within for insight as to how we get to be in co-creation with our highest self and with the universe, to bring that, to manifest those realities in a tangible and sensational way, and just being wise about how you express the truth of your nature as you are evolving each and every day, which is most certainly the prayer in spirit and in truth. Okay? So with all that being said, I can't wait to talk to you on the next one. But for now, as always, I leave you with peace.